My name is Bill Galing, and I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Alumni Engagement at Tufts, and proud member of the class of 1974. It's my pleasure to welcome you, our alumni, parents, and friends from around the world, to this special inaugural event with the 14th President of Tufts University, Neal Kumar. I'm greeting you today from the Joyce Cummings Center, a state-of-the-art building that houses the departments of computer science, economics, and mathematics, as well as the Center for Applied Brain and Cognitive Studies. This building was made possible through the generosity of the Cummings Foundations and sits right next to the long-awaited and recently opened Green Line Tufts Medford Station. President Neal Kumar comes to us from Johns Hopkins University, where he served as provost, the chief academic officer and second-ranking member of the senior administration, responsible for promoting and coordinating Johns Hopkins' teaching and research mission. In that role, he oversaw the university's 9 schools, as well as several interdisciplinary programs and academic centers. Prior to his role at Johns Hopkins, Kumar served as the dean of the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business, as well as the George Pratt Schultz Professor of Operations Management. Before that, he spent 14 years on the faculty of the Stanford University Graduate School of Business, where he was the Fred H. Merrill Professor of Operations, Information, and Technology. President Kumar comes to us during a very interesting and challenging time in higher education, and is charged with building on the great work of his predecessors. We're very excited about the experience, leadership, and vision that he brings to Tufts. For today's program, we're very fortunate to be joined by 2 prominent members of the Tufts family, Neal Shapiro and his wife, Juju Chang. Neal and Juju are the proud parents of a recent Tufts graduate, as well as a current Tufts student. Neal is a member of the class of 1980, sits on the University Board of Trustees, and is president and CEO of WNET. Juju is a television journalist for ABC News and is currently an anchor of Nightline. A presidential transition is an exciting time for a university. We're grateful that President Kumar is taking time today, during this busy week of inaugural events, to be with us. I hope you enjoy the program and that it gives you some insight into what is important to President Kumar and leaves you as inspired as we are about the future of Tufts. Thank you.
So nice to be with you. We're both delighted to be with Sunil. Honey, let's welcome everybody.
Well, we're so glad you can join us for this conversation. We're very much looking forward to it. And congratulations to you, President Kumar. We're so excited to have you here. Tufts is lucky to have you. So we're going to spend the next hour getting to know you a little bit better and picking your brain. Neal, why don't you start?
Let's go to our first question. Sunil, many colleges and universities were looking for presidents, and you were surely on their radar. What about Tufts really interested you?
Well, first of all, Neal, Juju, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like a celebrity, D-list, but still a celebrity nonetheless. And so, for me, there were 3 reasons that the job was so attractive. First, the search committee serves as the ambassadors of the university, and I had a lot of time with them. And they had a deep affection for the institution. Everybody from the undergraduate on the committee to the senior most trustee, everybody felt a deep affection for the institution. Second, they didn't want Tufts to be any other place. They wanted Tufts to be a better Tufts. And that kind of confidence was very, very attractive. The second was due to the efforts of my predecessors, Larry Bacco and Tony Monaco. This university is in excellent shape with a lot of upside potential. And finally, the greater Boston area is quite attractive. So those were the reasons.
It's great fun in the greater Boston area, no doubt. Our second question to you is that clearly the hallmark of great leadership is knowing how to juggle priorities. And no doubt your inbox is stuffed full of priorities. But I wonder, what does your list of priorities look like, and how do you think it might evolve as your leadership evolves?
Well, thank you for that. I've been here long enough to know the names of most of the buildings, so you shouldn't trust me with a detailed plan at this point. And that said, I see 5 kind of broad categories as areas of emphasis for the university. First is access, increasing access to Tufts, making Tufts a potential home for an even wider set of potential students. So that's the first one, broadening access to Tufts. This requires, of course, further investments in financial aid, outreach to high schools, etc., as well as investing in student services like career services, advising, etc. So that's something that's high on my list. The second is the student experience itself, and one place where it's time to get some traction is on expanding housing on campus. As you know, our undergraduate class has expanded, and I think we now have to expand housing to match it, and how best to go about that, we're still working through. The third is in many areas like food and nutrition, infectious diseases, tissue engineering, sustainable materials. Tufts has great research strength, and research strength in areas where it can do more than its fair share to address some of the world's pressing problems. And investing in those endeavors, I think, would be a priority for me. The fourth is, and this is not unique to Tufts, but we tend to view somehow students as existing only between ages 18 and say 26 or 27. But in today's world, I think you have to be much more broad in your definition of a student. And so building educational programs for working professionals, expanding our university college, which is a relatively new thing for the university, is a priority for me. And then finally, at Tisch, civic engagement is thought very much a focus, and that should continue. But civic engagement should expand to include things like the places where we, for example, care for our neighbors. Our dental hospitals, our veterinary hospitals. We should be much more engaged in the communities around us, working with them, and I think that would be a priority for me as well. But these are, broad buckets. Yeah.
And so, as I heard that, so many ideas and concepts and came flooding to mind. I'm sure some would come flooding to your mind, and many people will give you ideas. How do you sort it out? What are the next steps?
So the best way to sort these ideas out is to listen to people's reactions broadly. So a bottoms-up process from which a well-conceived plan can be put together, I think, is the next step. The second one, of course, is also to identify the required investments. You can't just keep asking the university to do more. You have to invest in the people, the faculty, the staff, and especially in the plant. In our buildings and infrastructure. I already talked about housing. And so we have to identify the necessary investments. And then finally, of course, we have to go and raise the resources, continue to raise resources in order to support those investments. So those are the next steps.
I have a slightly more personal question, which is, we know you were born in India. You came to the States to pursue your PhD at the University of Illinois. You taught at Stanford, my alma mater. You taught at University of Chicago. And of course, you had a distinguished career at Johns Hopkins as well. As an immigrant, I wonder, I know that my journalistic career has been touched by the fact that I'm an immigrant. I wonder how your incredibly distinguished career has been touched by your status as an immigrant to this country.
Well, I would like to start by pointing out the false analogy between your accomplishments and mine. So having resolved that, let me go on to the next step, which is, for me, I think as an immigrant, I'm in some sense, and I like to joke that I'm too dumb to know which doors are closed to me. I just assume that all doors are open. And it's only a matter of working hard enough and doing the right things to get the door open. And so that, I think, has served me well. The second is, I think, first-generation immigrants are, in some sense, more tolerant of risk. After all, they've taken a risk coming here. And and so for me, that I have, I think, a relatively good tolerance for risk. And with that comes the ability to know that you're going to fall short from time to time, you're going to mess up, and to dust yourself off and chalk it up to experience and move on. So I think those are, I attribute those to my immigrant experience.
So Neal, we're going to come back and talk to you about some of the issues and questions you'll be facing as president. But to kick that off, we're going to hear from some alums who sent some ideas in for you. So let's go to the tape.
We are thrilled to welcome you, President Kumar, to the Hill. Be sure to enjoy all that Tufts has to offer. The a cappella groups are fierce, go SQ. The dining hall's delicious. Tufts is tough not to love. Welcome aboard.
One piece of advice for you: when you need a quick break, grab a picnic blanket and head to the Tufts lawn. I assure you, few things are more relaxing.
President Kumar, I am so thrilled you are joining Jumbo Nation. What I really hope for you is that you get to make your own personal mark on the university, on the students, on the alumni, and on your staff. That Tufts brings out the best in you, but you get to bring out the best in Tufts.
As someone who is older and with a little more hair than you, my advice to you is that it gets very cold in Massachusetts in the winter. So make sure to get a nice hat or two so that you can get out of your office and enjoy the natural surroundings of Tufts' beautiful campuses in January and February. Good luck and thank you very much.
A very warm welcome to you, President Kumar. I hope you're already feeling the Tufts love on campus. I wanted to share one small piece of advice, and that is to invest in some good winter footwear. You're going to need it to navigate those icy hills on campus during a winter time that seems like it can last forever, some years.
Welcome to our Jumbo family. I look forward to working with you as we increase the engagement of our Hispanic and Latino alumni. My advice to you is get to know everybody. You'll have great fun.
Welcome, President Kumar. I've been an alumnus for 50 years. For the past 40 years, I've interviewed hundreds of high school candidates who have applied to Tufts. The students who have really taken the time to get to know Tufts have a palpable excitement of the people and programs of this university. I think Tufts does a wonderful job in presenting itself in the finest light to the young men and women who are deciding on a possible future at Tufts University. I thank Tufts for this great opportunity of spreading the good word about Tufts and welcome you to the Tufts community.
I want to share some words of wisdom. Warren Buffett once said, "Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." These words resonate deeply because they underscore the importance of having a vision and engaging in long-term planning. Tufts University has a rich history of fostering such visionaries. And so I look forward to the journey with you where we could plant the seeds of knowledge, innovation, and progress that will allow future generations to enjoy the shades of success. So welcome again and good luck.
So Neal, my family and I have been associated with Tufts University since the early 70s. And over many, many years, I've truly enjoyed working with members of the administration, faculty, and so many others dedicated to the mission at Tufts University. I am so thrilled and so honored by the work that is being undertaken at Tisch College. And I know that Dean Cunningham looks forward to working with her colleagues and you on ensuring that we are educating active and engaged citizens at Tufts who will be the future leaders of our country. Wishing you much, much continued success. And of course, I look forward to working with you.
Well, that was excellent advice. What do you think?
Indeed, indeed. The only one I do want to point out to people is I spent a decade in the Midwest. So I don't know what you're talking about the weather. I mean, the weather is whatever it is, and doesn't bother me in the least.
It's temperate. My son wrote Neal hates it when I say my son. Our son wrote a paper about Tish Roof, so I would recommend that highly as well. We have questions now from our students and from our alumni, so I want to pose them to you quickly. One is from DePaul Harris. It says alumni in 27, so I'm presuming a freshman, right? The question is, Tufts is an expensive school already, and yet our aspirations and our costs are likely to continue growing. How do we face this issue going forward? How critical is it to you? A classic pocketbook question for you, President Kumar.
Well, it is top of mind, and I parsed the question in two parts. As I already said, broadening access to Tufts is a priority for me. And so given that, I think we have to moderate the growth of tuition, as the questioner correctly points out. And one way to do it is to lower our dependence on tuition as a funding source for the university as a whole. Tuition is still a substantial funding source for the university, and we want to diversify our sources of revenue so that we can lower our dependence on tuition. So that's one way to do it. The other way is, of course, to make sure that, as we currently do, we meet all demonstrated financial need, so that when we admit somebody, that person is not prevented from attending because of financial constraints. And making financial aid even more robust, I think, will be valuable as we move forward in this. But this is definitely top of mind for me.
So Neal, several questions about the Supreme Court ruling that struck down affirmative action, or at least affirmative action as we know it. And it's focused a lot of attention on diversity and equity in college admissions. How will Tufts approach these issues?
Yeah, so as you know, our commitment to having a diverse student body has not been diminished by that decision, right? What it requires us to do is to comprehensively review our admissions policies and processes, which we are in the process of doing right now, to make sure we do assessment properly. And for me, the right assessment of a candidate is to measure their achievement against the opportunities they had and their life experience in some sense. And I think that is something for us to get right, and it is going to take us, I think, a year or two to get that one right. And the second thing is to make sure that we are able to credibly signal to a broad section of society that Tufts is a potential home for them. That is, we don't want them to censor themselves from applying to Tufts. And that's the other part that we have to do. And so it is, I'm not minimizing the impact of the decision. People are aware of what the California schools went through when the decision happened, et cetera. And that said, I think we will do this in a systematic way and live true to our values.
The next question, I think, is on the minds of a lot of parents sending their kids off to college these days. It comes from Denise Koo, alumni from 04, and Shital Shah, alumni of 24. They asked about political activism on Tufts campus. Political activism, as we all know, has been part of the college experience on campuses these days, though it seems more than ever politicized and polarized. Is it free speech or toxic speech, and where is that line drawn? Are we creating safe spaces or stifling academic freedom? Do you think tolerance for differing points of view is vanishing from college life?
So, boy, I'm getting softball after softball. So,
Yes, exactly.
This is an important question and something that's been on my mind. And I actually spoke to the Tufts Daily about this, and I'll repeat what I said to them. One kind of activism is something I'm entirely in favor of. When you want to make your voice heard for the cause you believe in, and you want your position to be heard by others, raising your voice is a good thing. And it's a proud Tufts tradition, and it should continue. The part that I am less in favor of, which I think is a less good thing, is when you raise your voice to make sure others aren't hurt. And I think that's the part that I worry the most about. A university is a place where people listen and learn. And there's almost nobody from whom you can't learn something, if only to learn that this person is despicable. But you must listen first rather than make up your mind. I think that is an important feature of a good education, is to teach people that there's a difference between listening and acquiescing to somebody else's position. And so I attend seminars and lectures by people with whom I have nothing in common and would not agree with them, but I still want to hear what they have to say. And I think that's the important value to reinforce from time to time. Now, that said, there are a few people who are just provocateurs, who are there just to provoke. And then you do draw the line at that point, saying this is, if something is being done just to spread pain and hate, then you do have to draw the line. And where to draw the line is hard. It's hard and has to be done on a case-by-case basis. But my preference is, when in doubt, listen. Right, so.
So Neal, I suspect that every Tufts president has been asked about the ranking of Tufts ever since rankings existed. This question comes from Steve Coltai, class of 76, Fletcher grad 78, and a parent. He asked about the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. News. As you know, both changed their methodologies and Tufts rankings dropped significantly. You've talked about it. How concerned are you about it, and what, if anything, can we do about it?
Yeah, so rankings have underlying metrics in them, and some of those metrics are very noisy. For example, in the Wall Street Journal ranking, if 50 alumni send back in a survey, that survey is seen as determinative of the opinion of the alumni body. And that, for a large alumni body like Tufts, that is not, it's too noisy a signal. Those, it's okay to ignore. But then there are other ones, and in both rankings, US News and World Report and Wall Street Journal, social mobility was an important component of the rankings, and which is to measure, for example, what fraction of our student body is Pell Grant eligible, that is, who come from the lowest two quintiles of the socioeconomic spectrum, to measure what is our 6-year graduation rate. And are our 6-year graduation rates different between the full student body and the Pell and Fly students? Do they graduate at the same rate as everybody else? And then third is how well does the university support those our students as they find their purpose in life and start on their careers? These are important metrics for us. So regardless of what the actual number attached to our name is, I care about the underlying metrics that matter to us and are not that noisy. I care about making them better. So the metrics that I listed out to you are things we should work on to make better. Now, if that improves our rankings, so be it. It's not an end for me, but it's another signal from which I can learn. Right. So.
We know that Tufts is unique in so many different ways, but one of them is the fact that there's a robust undergraduate school, but there's also graduate schools adjacent. And I'm curious what intrigues you about this particular constellation of disciplines in the graduate programs.
Yeah, so this is a real attraction of Tufts. We are the only university, and I'm going to use two acronyms, which outside of university administration should not mean anything to you. One is we are in the NESCAC, so the New England Small Colleges Athletic Conference. So these are all these small student-focused liberal arts colleges that are excellent, and we are counted as one of them. We are also in the AAU, the Association of American Universities. These are the 70 largest research universities in the country. And the membership there is based on the size and quality of your research portfolio. And we belong to both. And that's extremely attractive. That is, we keep this kind of small college vibe while having impact like a large university. And I think that's something that is unique and something that should continue. That's somehow part of our secret sauce, and we need to keep it that way. So for me, what's intriguing, and this is really a kind of cool thing, an intellectual exercise to think about, which is how do we go big while staying small? Because on the one hand, because we have large professional schools with substantial research footprints, et cetera, we want to go big in some sense. But it would be a shame if we did that at the expense of not being small in the best sense of the word, where we are intimate, people know each other, people choose to work here because it's intimate, people know each other and like each other. And so for me, you can't lose that, but at the same time, you got to go big. And how exactly you do that? Well, ask me in 5 years. And right now, I just know we have to do it. And I know that the community will help me figure it out.
So, a live question coming in I want to ask you. Alex says, regarding your response to free speech, how do we handle speakers that one group on campus wants to invite and another one regards as an offender?
I think unless you, I think the bar is, it should tilt towards inviting. We cannot give, while we should veto some speakers, and it's like I said, it's a hard call where you veto, that bar should be high. That bar should be high. Because, engaging, confronting in debate, asking questions of our speakers, etc., is, I think, the right way to engage on a university campus, right? So the bar should be high for when you don't invite, very high.
So we're segueing into live questions. So I would encourage anybody who's in the audience to just submit your questions, because as you can see, President Kumar is fielding live questions now. We have one from Kenneth who asks, how will you operationalize inclusion so that the Tufts graduating class every year are as diverse as the students who are admitted 4 years earlier?
Yeah, so this is a very, there is no easy answer for this, right? Everybody has to be engaged in this all the time. I think for me, the quality, let me back up and say something which I feel very strongly about. I believe access without mobility is a false promise. And so let me expand on that a little bit. Just letting people in the door is not the purpose of a college. The purpose of the college is to educate, build community, to help these young people find their purpose in life, and then to launch them towards that purpose. And that takes differing amounts of input on the part of the college for different members of society and different members of the student body. And I think we have to, therefore, make sure that every student we admit, and after all, every student we admit is exceptional. We do want to make sure that they get this, they come out the other end in some sense, not homogenized, but feeling like they had an equally satisfying experience and that the university was equally supportive of them as they launched onto their next phase in life. And so that's the principle. The practice of it, as the questioner asked, is daily blocking and tackling, daily, having the right rhetoric. There is no easy answers to any of this. It's not as if you launch program X, you're done, right? It's in some sense, you gotta work at it every day.
So Neal, this question is from Shweta, who says, how are you planning to prepare students for the rapid rise of AI, both to leverage and to govern, specifically about policy on international relations. And I'll ask even further, what do you think the impact of AI will be for colleges in general?
Yeah, so I was in a conference in DC where this was the topic of my talk. So I'm tempted to give you the entire 25-minute talk, but I won't filibuster. I'll give you the short version of it. My worry with especially this kind of predictive AI is it's learning from what we already know to predict what it thinks the next word should be. In some sense, the most likely next word or next phrase or next sentence. And my worry is that that will lead to a kind of homogenization of thought. It's not that I'm worried that you will use AI to advance society. It is that if everybody uses AI to advance society, we all become a monochromatic gray rather than differentiating ourselves. Like I said in the beginning of my remarks, I'm a firm believer in messing up. I went to a hackathon this summer, and the students are a little miffed when I wish them much failure. And the argument is, in a hackathon, when you fail, the next attempt is going to be way better than if you got some generic thing to work. And so that's this kind of homogenization is what I'm most worried about. For society, this can't be a good thing. In terms of what will happen in class, now I'm not teaching, so it's easy for me to kind of pontificate on what will happen in class. I intend to teach at some point once I figure out this president job, which I am far from having figured out. I think I will print out whatever ChatGPT gives as the answer to my questions as required pre-reading and tell the students to improve on it. Because that's how you break out of this kind of gray baseline, if you will, is to then give them a palette and say, paint on this. And I think that's how I think about this. It's not to say that AI isn't useful. I mean, it's extremely useful, but it should be recognized for the somewhat limited tool it is, at least now. Now, there may be a time when it gets better, but yeah.
And I feel like you're governing in real time on AI, but how do you, what sort of boundaries do you set for students as they're writing papers and doing research and tempted to rely on AI more than their own brain power?
Well, here's my advice to students. Somebody in this conversation asked, you're an expensive school. I think she was a freshman. And really, that's the value for money you want to get? Looking up the ability to look up something on the web, right? The value for money comes from actually pushing the boundaries in the class, learning, making mistakes, etc. And so for me, the first thing there is to point out to the students that even in the short term, this is a self-defeating strategy. For the faculty, like I said, there will be tools. There are already tools, for example, that will figure out if your code was plagiarized or written by somebody else. And I'm sure there will be tools soon that will start catching those things. But I don't believe this is so much about policing as much as, educating people about it's a tool. If you want to use it to predict the next material you should test in your lab, of course you should use it. But if it's simply to fill out 1,000 words on the ethics of AI, well, it would be a real shame if you use ChatGPT to do that.
So Neal, our question is about financial aid. And the question is, what would it take for Tufts to practice need-blind admissions?
So I had the privilege of working on the team that put the proposal at Hopkins to Mike Bloomberg to allow Hopkins to go fully need blind. Hopkins has a student body that's roughly the same size as Tufts, and as you know, the gift was $1.8 billion. It is very, very expensive. So let me walk you through the finances of why it is that expensive. If you take a Pell student, you cannot give them $5,000 of financial aid. It's irrelevant. You have to give them a full free ride and provide for living expenses and some allowance on top so that they can have a decent student life. That works out to $320,000 per Pell student over their 4-year time here. In many cases, because of stresses, additional preparation needed, you don't want to push them to try and finish in 4 years either. There is no particular hurry to do that. Maybe they should take 9 semesters. So that then adds a little more, which means for every 3 Pell students, you need $1 million a year in payout, which is $25 million a year in endowment. You get to 1.8 billion very quickly. So we have our work cut out to become neat black.
I must say that's daunting, I will say. We have another question.
It's just large. It's not, sorry to interrupt. It's just large. It's not daunting. Right.
Well, that's why you're the president and I'm the journalist. For the next question, Kimberly asks, my daughter is a sophomore and loves Tufts, but she says that it has a very cliquey culture with social cliques. She is the opposite kind of personality. How can this be improved, do you think?
Yeah, it's, again, it's one that you have to work at constantly. So I've already instituted my first major accomplishment at Tufts, which is what I call the, I said I'd fund events which satisfied 3 criteria. 1, they have to be open to everybody. So no exclusion of any sort allowed. 2, they should be good, clean, safe, etc. And 3, they should have no ostensible purpose other than to have fun. And so I said this at matriculation. And the reason I said it is partly because of the question that was asked. You want people to do stuff together for the sake of doing stuff together and not for the sake of advancing something, etc. And I think that's one way in which you can combat this. You have to, the second is, of course, raise awareness of the students themselves. When you talk to them and tell them, how many non-athletes are in your club, you can see a light bulb go off and the students saying, yeah, we have to do some more outreach on this. And so we have good students. We have well-meaning students. I don't think they mean to exclude. It's just that it's comfortable to be among people you like. And by the way, if you're interested, I can tell you what came back as the first proposal for my no purpose event. Now, the no purpose, this may lead to a flame war for me, but it is a live streaming of a Taylor Swift concert. So our students are going to hire a movie theater and then run our shuttle buses to that theater where they will live stream a Taylor Swift concert. Now that
so you've already said yes to
I
this.
signed up on that one.
So you
Sorry,
said
go
yes
ahead,
to
Neal.
it.
Oh,
That
it was a
involves
sophomore.
glittery wardrobe. I'm just warning you, that involves glittery wardrobe, President Kumar. Just letting you know.
I wasn't planning on attending. Now that I'm outed, maybe I have to go. Yeah.
Let's move along. Our next question is from Natalie. She asks about Tufts' commitment to anti-racism, and I know your predecessor did a lot of work on that as well. She'd like to know about what Tufts' commitment is now towards this initiative and any changes that you plan to make.
So I think the emphasis on the DEIJ emphasis that Tony Monaco put in place will continue. One of the last hires that Tony did is an excellent hire. His name is Monroe France, who will be the Chief Diversity Officer for the university. Monroe already has a plan for how he wants to, build on the efforts that have already taken place. So no change in commitment. Now, of course, as with every new leader, Monroe will have his own ideas as to what's most effective, et cetera. So the actual programming, et cetera, may change based on his experience and his priorities. but the institutional commitment has not abated in the least. Right. So.
I think there are so many metrics that point towards an epidemic in mental health crises in this generation. I'm just curious, President Kumar, what kinds of support systems that you're emphasizing and doubling down on, and what the policies might be for students who are struggling?
Yeah, for me, I'll start with the second one first, which is both from the student side and also from the university side, there's sometimes a push to just get students done and out the door. And I think that's a mistake. 20 years out, nobody's going to remember how many years you took to finish your undergraduate. So when people need to slow down, they should, right? And the university policy should permit that. And that's the first thing. And then the second is, we have already invested in expanding care. And in fact, I'll take this on a slightly different track. The undergraduate side, Tony did a lot of work on this, which we will continue. But on the graduate side as well, because today's MD student was last year's senior. It's not as if somehow they've gone from, a relatively fragile young person to somehow resilient adult in the course of one summer. So we actually have to provide this support. In fact, we are doing this. We are expanding the clinic on the Boston campus for our MD students, et cetera, because we get more students who need a little more help, and we need to provide that as broadly as possible. And then there's also, trying to use other non-treatment but still support services that make it easier for people to deal with the issues they have and still continue to thrive. So this is something that's, it's important, and it's important to get right.
So, I think you touched on this before, but the question is, what are your thoughts on legacy admissions, and what will Tufts do about it?
Yeah, so like I said, I don't want to separate one out from another, given the SCOTUS decision, one aspect of admission out from another, given the SCOTUS decision. So that's why we are doing this comprehensive review. And I don't have a timeline as to when this will get done, but I expect that in the next, several months, we will have our position articulated. So stay tuned.
I can tell that the live audience is really listening, because we have a really wise follow-up to something you were saying earlier, President Kumar, which is a question from Daniel, who asks, I'm not at all opposed to Tufts research and applied dimensions, simply would like a reflection on that balance. Another way to put it is there are plenty of good universities in our country that provide good career and professional paths. How does that square with Tufts' heritage and the desire, as you said, to remain small?
So this is it's a very important question. And at the very beginning, in the answer to my first question, one of the things I said was, what attracted me to the job was nobody I talked to at Tufts wanted Tufts to become anything else, right? And I think that's important for us to recognize, cherish, hold on to. And the faculty who come here, who many times set the culture and this trade-off between research and teaching, or even believe there's a trade-off, faculty here are different. I'll give you an example. The Arts and Sciences Senate wrote me a letter. And the Arts and Sciences Senate does not write a letter that says, we're so delighted to have you here, and here's a bouquet of roses, right? They sent me a list of 6 things I should worry about. But what is really remarkable was the first 2 were about supporting their students and building better infrastructure for teaching. And that came before their own salaries. That only made it to number 3. And that tells you the values and the caliber of the Tufts faculty. And so when you grow your research portfolio, you want to grow it by recruiting and supporting faculty who think this way, who don't see teaching as a chore, but see it as the reason why they're at Tufts. And that provides the kind of student-centric smallness that the questioner is asking about. And I think this is, you have to pay attention to it all the time. You can't let it get away from you, because I know of institutions, I won't name them, where faculty members prove their chops, quote unquote chops, by showing how little they have to teach. This is called buying out, where you bring in enough research funding of your own that basically you're paying your own salary, and so you don't teach. And that's a terrible place for Tufts to be. It would be very hard for us to keep our culture if we had too many people doing this. And so it's something that I will be vigilant about. So I want to reassure you, I will be vigilant about.
So I want to follow up a little bit more on that, because you actually mentioned to us before about how your professional career has been more in the sciences and the math, and maybe the philosophy majors who might be listening. I wonder, for those kind of liberal arts that aren't necessarily on their face geared towards professions, are you worried that there's an increasing trends towards STEM, increasing move towards research, that some of those traditional liberal arts will lose their priority?
Look, one of the values of Tufts is you can be an EE and philosophy major, right? You can be electrical engineering and philosophy major. You can go back and forth. And in fact, in my matriculation speech, I said that every CS student should take a course in philosophy, and maybe every philosophy student should take a course in electrical engineering. And that was only to drum up traffic to my department. The second one, but the fact is, and I speak from personal experience here. I went through the Indian engineering system as an undergraduate. It's an outstanding system in training engineers. So I was very, very well educated as an engineer. I basically had to learn nothing else. COBOL counted as a humanities elective in my school because they didn't believe it was a rigorous enough programming language to count as an engineering class.
That's incredible.
And so given that, when I came to Urbana to do my PhD, I realized I was missing something. And it wasn't that I was missing a course, I was missing an entire education. And as I grow older, the value of that thing is the part that I wasn't formally trained in. The ability to learn from, for example, from literature about how you think of the world, right? It would have been a lot easier if I had been taught some of that. Trying to pick it up on my own, I'm sure I have mislearned a whole lot of stuff. And so for me, this is not a either or. It would be a shame if our university didn't always cherish the liberal arts and the humanities, and regardless of the major of the student.
Sort of follow up to that, you're talking about cross-pollinating across disciplines, and I'm curious, one of the virtues you spoke about with Tufts is that there's both a vibrant undergraduate and a graduate experience. I know that our oldest son, who recently graduated, did a thesis involving graduate students and was able to sort of cross that membrane. How would you encourage students, both graduate students and undergraduate students, to try to take advantage of the fact that they are nestled side by side at Tufts?
I think I would like the boundaries to be as porous as possible. And currently, some of the barriers are not intellectual, as far as I can tell. The barriers are administrative. We have decentralized schools, and going from one school to another involves administrative barriers. The calendars are not always aligned, and so that's another barrier, and things like that. Those can be overcome. I think that one of the keys of going big while staying small is to do more things together as schools. I think it's better for us to do more things together as schools, and so I'm very much in favor of this. And while I do believe in cross-pollination, I didn't mean to imply, by the way, that the humanities should be used simply as somehow partners to other disciplines. They are important in their own right, and I hope we continue to attract and graduate philosophy majors.
So this question says the Medford campus is difficult for those who are differently able to navigate it. College is also a tough space for those with autism or otherwise differently able to navigate. What, in your experience, can be done to assist these students on campus?
Yeah, so the TCU, the Tufts Community Union, as you know, brought this up as well. And first thing is to figure out a good set of maps and a good set of resources so that we at least can tell people how best they can access buildings. The other is to then think through a systematic plan to increase access and accommodations in general. And finally, I'll leave you with one thought on this, which is I don't think we should view this as an accommodation or a compliance issue. It's not, we don't do this because we want to be compliant with the code. We do this because it's part of our inclusion efforts. Like I said earlier, regardless of who comes in, they should have as close to a same experience as possible and come out feeling the same way about the university. And to do that requires us to learn from the disability community as to what will work best for them, and then try and implement those things going forward.
So I want to keep our eye on the clock and be respectful of everybody's schedule. So this is going to be the last question for you. Now, this is your freshman year at Tufts. At this point in my freshman year at Tufts, I made a major discovery that I found the only soft ice cream machine on campus, which was in Hodgson back then. Do you have any new discoveries or favorite places that you'd like to share?
Before I answer that question, I can't but repeat something that was said to me last Friday, or maybe it was last Saturday. I went to student fall fair. I can see those fairs from my bedroom window, and so whenever there's something going on, I just crash the party. And so I wandered in, and one of the students came up to me and said, "You're a freshman, and I can help you navigate." And I asked, "So which year are you?" And he said, "I was a sophomore." So he had already figured it out in a year, and so I do need some sophomore help. But for me, and this is related to something Juju said, and I want to reassure the audience that this was not choreographed. I love walking over to Alex's place, sitting there, absorbing the view and reflecting. In my job, I don't get that much time to reflect, and so I put a block on my calendar under some fictitious meeting, and for just half hour, I walk over to Alex's place. This is the top of the Tisch Library, named for Alex Mandel, and I sit there. And that half an hour reminds me on how lucky I am to be where I am.
You might very easily bump into our son.
But I think for any of us who've been at Tufts, we can all visualize that and see exactly as you described it. But some alums did send ideas about some of their favorite things that they wanted to share with you. So let's take a listen.
Welcome, President Kumar. We are so excited to have you and a great new chapter at Tufts. My favorite thing about Tufts are the friends and connections that I've made, including my husband.
My favorite thing about Tufts is the outstanding clinical teaching with amazing professors, surgeons, and physicians who made learning exciting and made me feel like part of a team and taking care of patients.
Welcome to Tufts University, President Kumar. One of the great things about Tufts is that you can major in almost anything you want and still graduate with a college degree.
My favorite thing about Tufts are the incredible, civically engaged students that don our campuses. This past year, I had the privilege to co-lead the Women Impact Tufts Initiative, or WIT, where I was joined by more than 160 Tufts women in raising more than $26 million in financial aid. WIT looks forward to meeting you and working with you soon. I wish you all the very best in your inaugural year at Tufts, and am so excited to call you a jumbo.
My favorite thing about Tufts is alumni engagement. I'm currently the president of Tufts Medical Alumni Association. Tufts Med alumni are still very much curious, invested, and engaged in the current student experience.
Something I really loved about Tufts was the community and the people that I met and the relationships I fostered there. They're still some of my closest friendships today.
Yeah, similarly, I'd say the friendships I made there were those that have lasted, past 10 years since I graduated, many of which were at our wedding 2 weeks ago. And also the Tufts Marathon team, something I did my junior year that had a huge impact on me and is an amazing thing that Tufts offers.
Welcome, President Kumar. I love that Tufts is an R1 university with a small college feel. You can be working on a groundbreaking food ag research project while reaping the benefits of a New England liberal arts college. What a fabulous combo for our students.
I hope that you will share with me my great love of our campus in all 4 seasons of the year, as well as the passion of our students, faculty, and alumni for making the world a better place. I look forward to meeting you soon.
One of the most rewarding things about Tufts was the lifelong friendships I've made, including my beautiful wife, Susan, and being a member of an illustrious club of jumbo couples. So with that, just want to say welcome to campus and to an extraordinary community. We breed brown and blue.
Woo!
Well, as we say in our household, go Bows. I want to toast you today with my favorite mug. I don't know if you can read it. It's my Tufts Mom mug. And that's my toast to you, President Kumar, as you embark on your new tenure. We will be in there in person, Neal and I, on Friday for your inauguration. And we want to remind everyone that they can watch it online if they can't join us, right, Neal?
That's right. It's inauguration.tufts.edu. We want to thank you, President Kumar. We want to thank everybody at Tufts who helped pull this together. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening. Let's go, Jumbos.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.